Today's lesson is Nobel Prize in Medicine awarded for research that led to COVID-19 vaccines. Hi, everybody. I'm Roger.
Hello, I'm Kiki.
And some of you might be old enough to remember the COVID-19 pandemic. Of course, lots of people are putting it into the past. It's still around in some form or another, but for the most part, life has returned to normal. But of course, during the pandemic, everybody was wondering about whether they should get a vaccine or not. And it just so happens that one of the Nobel Prizes in medicine was awarded for someone who did research regarding those COVID-19 vaccines.
Right. So their research was able to help people develop special vaccines that we can take or we can inject into our bodies to try to protect ourselves or make our bodies stronger to fight the COVID-19 virus when we catch it. And in this particular prize for medicine, it was for the research for mRNA vaccines. And that's a different type of vaccine compared to some of the others that might be in the market.
Yep, there's a lot of technical language in today's lesson, and I'm no scientist, so I'm not going to try to explain that too much, but we will touch on these terms as our lesson continues. Again, a vaccine, of course, is a kind of injection or shot you get to help you prevent getting a disease, and of course, there are all sorts of different vaccines that you could choose from during the pandemic. I suppose they're still around to some degree, but let's find out what this is all about. Let's listen to the first part of our lesson, and then we'll come back to discuss it.
Nobel Prize in Medicine awarded for research that led to COVID-19 vaccines. Katalin Kariko and Drew Weissman were recently chosen as the winners of 2023's Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine for their groundbreaking research into mRNA vaccines. Specifically, the prize committee's announcement cited their discoveries concerning nucleoside base modifications that enabled the development of effective mRNA vaccines against COVID-19.
大家好，第一部分首先来介绍形容词 groundbreaking， 意思是开创性的。例如 The researchers have done groundbreaking work in treatments for cancer. 研究人员在癌症疗法上有了突破性的成果。又或者说 Archaeologists have made a groundbreaking discovery. 考古学家有了一项突破性的发现。接下来我们看到动词 cite， 它的意思是引用、引述或是引证、举例的意思。例如 Simon cited a number of scientific papers in his own research. Simon 在自己的研究里引述了多篇科学论文。又或者说 Michael's manager cited several reasons he would have to fire him. Michael 的经理举出得开除他的几个理由。
Okay, everybody, it's time for us to discuss the contents of today's lesson. We've got Katalin Kariko and Drew Weissman, and they were recently chosen as the winners of 2023's Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine for their groundbreaking research into mRNA vaccines. That's a pretty long sentence, so let's break it down. First of all, we've got two people here, Katalin Kariko, and we've also got Drew Weissman. So they both won this award together. They kind of co-won this award. They were chosen as the winners of the Nobel Prize in 2023, and it's in the category of physiology or medicine. Of course, Nobel Prizes are given according to different categories. There's the Nobel Peace Prize. There's one in chemistry, and there are other divisions as well. This particular award is in the category of physiology or medicine, and physiology is just kind of the study of living things. It's like biology, and it deals with living organisms and their parts. And, of course, that is kind of similar to medicine, in which you need to understand these things about how bodies work so you can treat various illnesses.
And they were awarded the Nobel Prize for Medicine for their groundbreaking research into mRNA vaccines. So mRNA vaccines, they are a type of vaccine, and they did groundbreaking research. So they were studying the different vaccines and how it works, and their research, or the things that they discovered, were groundbreaking. When something is groundbreaking, it is something that is new, that is created, and it can bring a lot of big change, and it is very significant to something and can help a lot of others in thinking or discovering more and more ideas. So in this case, it is groundbreaking. It is new research that can change how people see mRNA vaccines.
Right. This, of course, comes from the meaning of groundbreaking, which means to actually start digging when you're going to build a new building. There's a groundbreaking ceremony in which the CEO or the most important person involved will take a shovel and shove it into the ground and remove a little bit of dirt. That's the groundbreaking ceremony, and construction can begin. In this particular case, if something's groundbreaking, it's new, it hasn't happened before, and it makes big changes. They had this groundbreaking research into mRNA vaccines. And specifically, the prize committee's announcement cited their discoveries concerning nucleoside base modifications that enabled the development of effective mRNA vaccines against COVID-19. Whew, that's very scientific, very technical, but that's what they said. They cited these particular achievements. They had discoveries which concerned nucleoside base modifications. Okay, so I guess nucleoside has something to do with the nucleus of an atom, and a modification is just kind of a change in something. For example, if you're going to ride your motorcycle around Taiwan, you might need to make some modifications to the engine, to make some changes so you don't have breakdowns while you're trying to do this.
So when the Nobel Prize Committee made the announcement, they cited what Carrico and Weissman discovered. Okay, so when you cite something, it is to refer to an example from a written work to back up a statement or argument. So in this case, they wanted to back up the reason why they chose Katalin Carrico and Drew Weissman to be the 2023 Nobel Prize winners, and they cited that it was the discoveries concerning nucleoside base modifications that enabled the development of effective mRNA vaccines against COVID-19.
But so here, to cite as a verb just means to point out. They quoted this, and that's what they said regarding the reasons why they were awarded the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine. Okay, that brings us to the end of the first part of our lesson for today. Let's talk some more about this very fascinating topic as we begin the month of February. Let's listen to the second part right now.
Carrico began her work on mRNA-based therapies at the University of Pennsylvania in 1989, teaming up with Weissman after his arrival at the university in 1997. At first, they struggled to attract much interest in their research, which was largely ignored by the scientific community. However, the pair felt certain they were onto something, and by overcoming key hurdles to mRNA-based therapies, they helped lay the foundation for mRNA COVID-19 vaccines that saved millions of lives during the global COVID-19 pandemic.
第二部分看到片语 lay the foundation 或是 lay the foundations for 或是 of 名词，有为点点点打下基础的意思。例如 By hiring only the best people, we lay the foundation for a successful company. 唯有雇用最优秀的人才，我们才能为成功的企业奠定基础。或是 The king had laid the foundation of a strong empire for his people. 该国王为他的人民奠定了日后强大帝国的基础。
Carrico began her work on mRNA-based therapies at the University of Pennsylvania in 1989. So this happened long before COVID-19 even existed. And in 1989, she already started to study this form of mRNA-based therapies. So what a therapy is a type of treatment used to relieve or heal a certain disease or disorder. And sometimes therapy can be something that is done long-term to get better. So, for example, if you got injured while playing a certain type of sport, you might need physiotherapy or physical therapy to try to get your muscles and bones and tendons back to working condition. So, therapy is something that you'll have to go through a certain amount of time to help you get better.
Right. So, of course, this is a therapy or a method of treatment that is based on mRNA, and she started to do this at the University of Pennsylvania in 1989. She teamed up with Weissman after his arrival at the university in 1997. So if you team up with somebody, you get together with them to work together on a particular project. I could say, for example, Batman and Superman teamed up to fight the Joker.
At first, they struggled to attract much interest in their research, which was largely ignored by the scientific community. At that time, a lot of people in the scientific community, they did not really think much about mRNA research or what mRNA can do. So, at first, they struggled to attract much interest, so they weren't getting a lot of attention or even support by a lot of others from their peers in the scientific community.
Right. So, of course, this happens a lot of time when people start working on something. It takes a while for them to be recognized. However, the pair felt certain they were onto something. And by overcoming key hurdles to mRNA-based therapies, they helped lay the foundation for mRNA COVID-19 vaccines that saved millions of lives during the global COVID-19 pandemic. So yes, they were being ignored at first, but they felt that they were onto something. If you're onto something, that means you're convinced that what you're doing is logical and that it has some value. And sometimes, of course, when you recognize the work of somebody else, you might say, oh, I think you're onto something there. I think what you're doing is actually reasonable and it might produce results.
And by overcoming key hurdles to mRNA-based therapies, they helped lay the foundation for the types of vaccines that we have right now. So they had a lot of hurdles. We mentioned that they were ignored by the scientific community. People didn't believe in the research that they were doing. So hurdles are things that usually we'll see athletes will have to jump over these things, these little gate things, so they're hurdles. But when you come across a hurdle, it is a problem or a difficult situation that you have to overcome or a problem that you have to solve. So they overcame certain problems or questions they had regarding mRNA-based therapies. So they found the answers to these things related to mRNA therapies. And when people would ask them about it, they would have very concrete answers so they can convince people that what they were doing and the research that they were doing was correct.
Right, so this helped them lay the foundation for vaccines that fought COVID-19. Lay here just means to put something down, to establish something, and they lay the foundation, or they laid the foundation. That's the past tense of lay in this particular sense. Don't say, I want to lay down. That's wrong. You can say, I want to lie down, because you're doing that to your own body. If you're doing it to something else, then you lay that thing down. So here they laid the foundation for these vaccines, and those vaccines saved millions of lives during that pandemic that we all know and love so well. Okay, that brings us to the end of the second part of our lesson for today. Here comes the third and final part.
Meanwhile, as valuable as mRNA vaccines have already proven to be, the insights from Carrico and Weissman's work should continue to provide enormous benefits going forward. According to the Nobel Committee, the great flexibility of mRNA vaccine technology will likely enable the development of both cancer treatments and vaccines for other infectious diseases. Carrico and Weissman's Nobel Prize is thus a recognition of not only the benefits their work has already provided, but also those it will yield in the future.
第三部分我们看到 enormous， 它是形容词，意思是极大的或是很多的。例如 An enormous whale was washed up on the beach. 一只巨大的鲸鱼被冲上海岸。或是 Esther received an enormous sum in the court settlement. Esther 从法庭和解得到一大笔钱。再来看到单字 flexibility， 它是名词，表示灵活性或是弹性。我们可以说 Dancers must have a great deal of flexibility. 舞者必须要有绝佳的灵活度。又或者说The flexibility of this material prevents it from snapping when pressure is applied. 这种材质的弹性避免它在承受压力时断裂。接着介绍 infectious， 这个形容词的意思是疾病传染性的或是传染的。举例来说 Mosquitoes carry several infectious diseases. 蚊子携带许多传染疾病。或是 Carla's infectious laughter brought a smile to everyone's face. Carla 具感染力的笑声让每个人脸上也挂上了笑容。最后是名词 recognition， 它是认可、赞赏，也可以是承认或是识别的意思。例如 The artist did not receive recognition for her work until many years after her death. 那名艺术家直到过世多年后才因为作品而受到赞赏。最后一个例子 The company's voice recognition technology is unmatched. 这间公司的语音辨识技术无可匹敌。
All right, let's wrap things up. Meanwhile, as valuable as mRNA vaccines have already proven to be, the insights from Carrico and Weissman's work should continue to provide enormous benefits going forward. So we know and we have seen these mRNA vaccines at work. They have shown that they are useful and they have helped save millions of lives. And the insights from their research by Carrico and Weissman, the work that they've done and the research, it should help us continue to find more things as we move forward. So an insight is basically the ability to have an accurate or deep understanding of something or someone. And in this case, we know that Carrico and Weissman, they have a lot of insight or they have a lot of understanding about mRNA.
Exactly. So if you're trying to set up a company or something, you might want to contact somebody so they can give you some insight, some special knowledge that they have that you don't, and that information might be helpful to you. And of course, their work might continue to provide enormous benefits going forward. Enormous, of course, means something really, really big. So yes, indeed, those insights should provide enormous benefits as they go forward, as they progress, as they continue to do more work concerning vaccines and fighting diseases and things like that. Now, according to the Nobel Committee, the great flexibility of mRNA vaccine technology will likely enable the development of both cancer treatments and vaccines for other infectious diseases. So, of course, we've got the Nobel Committee that's comprised of different people who give out these awards every year. And if you're talking about flexibility, you're talking about the ability of something to change according to conditions. You might want to have a flexible schedule if you're working for a particular company and lots of people want to meet with you. Flexible is the adjective and flexibility is the noun.
So here they're describing that mRNA vaccine technology is really flexible. So it could be modified or it can be easily changed in many different ways. And because of its flexibility, it will likely enable the development of both cancer treatments and vaccines for other infectious diseases. So it is suggesting that because this mRNA vaccine technology is flexible, it's easily modified, that it can be used in other ways. So they might be able to use the same technology to develop or create other treatments for things like cancer and other vaccines for other infectious diseases. So when something is infectious, it is something that is transmitted to living things through the environment, and it is something that is likely to spread or to influence a certain area in a really fast manner.
Right. So, of course, cancer is not infectious, but the common cold, for example, is infectious, or COVID-19 was highly infectious. SARS was infectious as well. And Carrico and Wiseman's Nobel Prize is thus a recognition of not only the benefits their work has already provided, but also those it will yield in the future. So here we've got the word recognition, and that just means when someone is recognized for doing something, when people can admit that you did this thing or they see you. Recognition also refers to when a country is accepted by other countries as being the legitimate country or the legitimate government of a certain country. Like there are very few countries in the world that recognize Taiwan. Recognize is the verb and recognition is the noun.
So we know that for many years, the scientific community did not really think much about their study on mRNA vaccine, but now they have finally been recognized. Not only the benefits of their work has really shown that it can provide more help for things that will yield in the future. So yield is to produce or generate something. And for example, when farmers grow their crops, usually they want to see the yield that they have produced over a season. So it's how much they've produced over a period of time. And in this case, not only have we seen that their studies and their research have already helped during the COVID pandemic, they are most likely going to be able to help produce more things in the future.
Okay, that brings us to the end of our explanation for today. Here comes Hanny.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文第一部分有提到关于核苷碱基修饰的发现，那文中它是用 modification 这个字来表达修饰、改变或是修改，那它的动词是 modify。 我们来学习它的字根。好，看到 mod 或者是 mode 这一类的字根就有那种度量、测量或者是衡量或是方式的意思。那么在 modify 这个字当中，它的字根 mod 就是表达度量、测量，那么 ify 是动词字尾。当我们把事物控制在度量、测量的范围内，适度的调整，不要让它超出测量范围，用这种方式也许可以联想到 modify 它有调整啊、变更或者是稍作修改的意思。好，那我们顺便补充两个有这一类字根的单字。第一个是 moderate， 它的字根 mode 表示衡量，那么 ate 是形容词字尾，当某事物的数量有经过衡量，不会太多也不会太少，那就表示它是适量的。用这样的方式应该可以联想到 moderate， 它可以用来形容适度的、适中的、节制的或者是温和的。好，那第二个补充的是 module， module。 好，那它的字根 mod 表示样式，字尾 ule 表示小，合在一起 module 它就表示模组或是组件。我们看到课文第三部分有一句写到，根据诺贝尔奖委员会的说法， mRNA 疫苗技术极大的灵活性将有可能促进癌症治疗和其他传染病疫苗的开发。那文中是用到 infectious 来形容疾病是传染性的或是形容传染的，那它的动词是 infect。 我们也来补充它的字根。好，当看到 FECT fact 或是 fict 这一类字根，它表示 do 或者是 make， 就有做啊、制作、产生、促使等等的意思。那么在 in fact 这个字当中，它的字首 in 表示在点点点之中，字根 fect 表示产生。那在某个群体之中来产生影响、产生作用，也许就可以联想到 infect， 它是表达感染、传染，那也可以表达说这个情感感染了别人，使他受影响的那种意思。我们顺便补充2个有相同字根的单字，第一个是 effect， E-F-F-E-C-T， 那它的字首 EF 就是来自 EX， 表示向外，字根 fact 表示产生，那合在一起就表示向外来产生，可能是产生作用啊、影响，所以 effect 这个字就有这种效力、影响或作用的意思。它也可以当动词去表达造成，使某件事发生、实现。好，第2个补充呢是 defect，D-E-F-E-C-T， 那它的字首 D-E 表示 down 或者是 away， 就带有向下离开的语义。那么字根 fact 表示制作，同学们可以试着联想，制作出来的东西却被往下丢弃、丢开了，那就表示那个东西可能是有缺陷的、有问题的，所以 defect 这个字当名词可以指瑕疵或者是缺陷的意思哦。好，那以上今天重点整理，我们回顾今天的单字吧。
Cite. During the presentation, Eric cited some figures that backed up his argument. Therapy. After his accident, Kyle required physical therapy to help him walk again. Insight. The film gives insight into what it was like to live during Roman times. Enormous. It would be an enormous help to me if you could pick up the drinks for the party. Flexibility. At Judy's office, there is a great deal of flexibility in working hours. Infectious. The doctor stressed the importance of hand washing to prevent infectious diseases in school. Recognition. The composer won an award in recognition of his work on this movie. Yield. Dr. Simon hopes that the study will yield valuable discoveries.
Discussion Starter starts now!
Here's our discussion starter for today. The question is, what inspirations did you draw from Carrico and Wiseman?
One inspiration I drew from their work was that I now see that we should never give up on something that we believed in. They didn't have a lot of support from their peers and their community, but they just kept trying.
That is wonderful inspiration. They inspired me to actually learn more about this terminology because I really don't know very much about biochemistry and diseases. I know what RNA and DNA stand for, but I don't really know much about vaccines, so it's worth further research.
Well, everyone, today's article has come to an end, and I sure hope you enjoy reading along with us. I am Kiki.
I am Roger.
See you next time.